players coming from respective countries. Like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. You know, she's been the biggest ever, you know, tennis player from that country, which is a big country, and there's a big interest. So things like that happen. I mean, it's you could argue that it was, you know, maybe a poor schedule, and maybe they could schedule them on a bigger court. Yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through. So. And obviously the first couple rounds, the schedule is so packed, the big courts with big names, it's difficult.
When Novak Djokovic singles out Alex Eala with deliberate precision, the tennis establishment suddenly finds itself confronting questions it never anticipated. Why does a champion of his stature deliberately amplify a 20-year-old's presence with such calculated intensity? What forces did he recognize beneath Melbourne's pandemonium that escaped everyone else's attention? This transcends mere admiration and signals the emergence of a seismic transformation in tennis that defies conventional explanation.
Eala entered the tournament as the number 44 in the world, the 15-win, 10-loss season so far. The best result was the Dubai quarterfinals, where she lost to Goff in the end, and her best win actually came against Goff a couple weeks later in Indian Wells, who was number 4 in the world at the time. Her worst loss was against Parks at Australian Open, who was 99 in the world at the time. Her form on the clay hasn't been great. She has lost more matches than she's won. She's had a couple of tough draws as well, losing to Ostapenko and Fernandez. So playing against a qualifier in this first round will really go a long way to get her confidence back. These two have never played before, first time meeting, so we'll see what happens here because, of course, Pavlyuchenkova has made a French Open final and Eala is looking for some form on this surface, so it'll be a really interesting time to play. If Pavlyuchenkova is going to win this one, she needs to use that confidence and experience on this surface.
Tennis is experiencing an unprecedented disruption that originates not from technique, statistics, or tournament results, but from collective response patterns. When Novak Djokovic, whose greatness spans decades of Grand Slam victories and clutch performances, deliberately highlights a rising 20-year-old sensation like Alex Eala with remarkable conviction, it exposes an almost unsettling reality. He's identifying something that others are only starting to comprehend.
Meeting Alex Eala for the first time was absolutely amazing because obviously she's become such a huge point of Pinoy pride, someone whom we can be proud of, whom we can watch because she's still so young and building her career. So for me, it's such a thrill meeting her in person.
Yes, and I think it's so great for young Filipinos to see such an icon on the international stage. And nakaka-excite din kasi na-inspire din sila to really get into sports and to try tennis. And malay mo.
From Miss World.
The Australian Open has always functioned as a masterclass in controlled precision, where every detail follows predetermined protocols. Marketing maintains its polished veneer, and unpredictability remains safely contained away from center stage venues. This tournament has perfected the art of managing expectations within carefully constructed boundaries.
Quinn, I know it's not always easy to play against a local hero, but you managed to dig deep and also score in the moments that were very important. What do you think made the difference tonight?
No, I think I kept the intensity well throughout the match. She's a very intense player and has really good shots, so I'm really happy with the win.
And you also had a lot of fans supporting you here in Linz tonight. A lot of fans from the Philippines, but I heard they actually live in Austria. Some of them are in Vienna, some of them in Linz, in Salzburg. What did it mean to you to also have a lot of people cheering for you?
It means so much. Hello, mga kababayan.
But somehow, amid all that meticulous organization, a single competitor began warping those established parameters. Djokovic didn't merely recognize this phenomenon. He embraced it with an intensity that resembled strategic preparation disguised as professional courtesy.
Gonna win this one. She doesn't get ready and move on the clay well. Now, she has played well at this tournament. She hasn't played well on clay in general in her career, but at this tournament, she has got some wins. So, if she can use that confidence at this tournament and try and move well on the clay, she might be able to get the win here. Interesting matchup here. Of course, Pavlyuchenkova coming off a long losing streak, and Eala trying to get some wins on clay. I'm going to go with Eala in 3 sets. I reckon she'll get it done in the end. She has had a couple of tough roads and a couple of tough opponents in the last few matches. So I'm going to go with her in 3. And she has the, the favorite, I guess, or the higher ranked player in this match.
On the surface, this appears straightforward. A veteran champion acknowledging emerging talent. Tennis has always featured these generational exchanges where established stars offer measured encouragement to newcomers before continuing their own journeys. However, this situation carried entirely different undertones. Djokovic's commentary didn't reflect politeness but rather deep certainty. When someone who has competed alongside Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal expresses that level of conviction, it carries authenticity that cannot be manufactured. What amplifies this intrigue is how this recognition didn't materialize spontaneously. Players throughout the circuit have been quietly rallying around Alex Eala in ways that suggest profound collective understanding rather than casual endorsement. They're responding not just to her achievements but to her very presence, to how audiences transform during her matches, to the electric atmosphere that follows her performances like an unstoppable force, because her match generated circumstances that exceeded unusual and approached complete chaos. Thousands of spectators descended upon a venue never engineered for such overwhelming attention. Queues extended for hours. People positioned themselves in areas never intended for viewing, desperately hoping to witness a player who theoretically shouldn't yet command such massive crowds.
So I remember attending the first round of her match, which was a tough match at the US Open, and then I went back home, and then I was contemplating coming back, and I wanted to witness her win because I think she has such an amazing head on her shoulders and the game, and I think she has a voice and a platform that's gonna transcend the sport, and as we know now, sport is not just tennis, it's fashion, it's art, it's culture, it's having a platform, and I think she does brilliantly of merging all of those together.
Rather than distancing himself from that bedlam, Djokovic legitimizes it completely. He acknowledges the organizational oversight, which itself represents unusual transparency, but he immediately recontextualizes that oversight as something significant, almost predestined. He states the obvious, yet in ways that suggest nobody else had fully grasped the implications. A nation containing over 100 million people finally possesses a tennis representative they can genuinely support. The existing framework simply wasn't prepared for what that reality actually produces in practice. This extends beyond complimentary remarks. Potential remains hypothetical. Genuine impact transforms entire systems. You can sense it in how other competitors discuss her, even during unrelated conversations. There's a protective undertone, as if the locker room universally recognizes that her significance transcends rankings or match victories. They witness the crowds, they experience the intensity, they understand the cultural revolution unfolding directly before them. Djokovic, more than anyone, recognizes what that kind of revolution looks like before it reaches full momentum. So when he champions Alex Eala, it doesn't resemble casual support. It represents acknowledgement from someone who has witnessed this pattern previously. That's where this narrative becomes genuinely disturbing.
What are your most recent realizations about playing professionally at a very high level?
I think, especially this year, one big realization I had, I was talking to one of my coaches, and it was crazy how things changed before and after Miami, how many doors opened up, and of course all this attention and everything, and it's crazy because we were saying like everything that I'm doing is still the same, like our routines are still the same, the people surrounding me are still the same, my tight circle. So he told me, so Alex, what's the lesson in that? And I thought about it and I said, what? And then he said, the lesson is that when you're doing bad, it's not the...
If the turmoil surrounding her competitions isn't a complication but rather an indicator, then future developments won't be something the sport can simply address through improved logistics. It transforms into something requiring fundamental restructuring. The current system, already struggling to manage these early manifestations, must determine whether it can evolve quickly enough to maintain relevance. What makes this even more fascinating is the emotional foundation underlying everything. Spectators aren't merely observing Alex Eala, they're emotionally committing to her journey. They're enduring hours-long waits, withstanding extreme temperatures, sacrificing premium seating, yet continuing to celebrate as if witnessing genuine history. Instead of rejecting this phenomenon, they're welcoming it, nurturing it, and in Djokovic's case, actively protecting it. Because there's an implicit understanding in all of this that nobody directly articulates, but everyone seems to recognize. Tennis requires this evolution, not simply another skilled competitor, but someone who expands the sport's geographical and cultural boundaries, who introduces fresh audiences, unprecedented emotions, and elevated expectations into a framework that has occasionally felt overly predictable.
What did you make of her run in Miami and her as a player?
Yeah, I thought it was really fascinating. She uses her leftiness really well. When she went on that run, it was really impressive how she handled the big moments on the stadium court. What's interesting about her draw in Madrid is if she beats Tomova, who does she play second round? It would be Swiatek, who has that bye. So I love this in women's tennis right now, where you get like a compelling matchup maybe a month after the first one.
That's precisely why Djokovic's statements resonate so powerfully. He's not discussing one individual player. He's describing the sport's destiny, A destiny where tennis becomes more dynamic, more unpredictable, less controllable, and significantly more international than ever before. A destiny where a match on a secondary court can feel more significant than a championship final, simply based on who's competing. A destiny where the primary challenge isn't filling empty seats but managing overwhelming demand. If that destiny is already manifesting through Alex Eala, then Djokovic's supposed revelation isn't really about current circumstances. It's about what's approaching. Because when a legend stops condemning chaos and starts defending it, it typically indicates the chaos isn't temporary. It represents transformation. Once you accept that this isn't a momentary spike but a fundamental shift in the sport itself, the attention surrounding her no longer seems surprising when analyzed through that perspective. The reactions from elite players begin making perfect sense, particularly when those reactions consistently favor encouragement, protection, and authentic enthusiasm rather than doubt or detachment. What's most remarkable is how organically this support network has developed, because in a sport as individually focused as tennis, where competitors are trained to maintain internal focus and preserve competitive advantages, widespread admiration for an emerging player is rarely this coordinated or this public.
I mean, I would like to start with giving the credit to Alex. I mean, what the hell she played in the first set. Yeah, I mean, she was smashing the ball and she was cleaning the lines and all that, so wow. Wow, it's a next generation coming that she's gonna come up and she's gonna be really good in a couple of years. So first of all, big credit to her.
With Alex Eala, there's a distinct shift in approach, as if the entire professional community understands that her achievements don't threaten others, but instead contribute to something benefiting tennis's complete ecosystem. Players who have spent years managing global attention pressures seem to recognize the burden she's shouldering, and rather than leaving her to handle it independently, they're providing public support that feels both calculated and authentic. This is where Novak Djokovic's reframing of scheduling chaos as validation rather than incompetence becomes strategically brilliant. When he discusses overcrowding as positive evidence, he's simultaneously protecting her from criticism, shifting focus away from operational failures and toward the fundamental reasons those failures are occurring. That type of intervention carries tremendous influence, especially from someone whose opinions shape discussions at tennis's highest levels.
Okay, we're going to let you get off court, but real quick, caught off guard, to say the least. She was going for broke, had nothing to lose. She pushed you to the limits tonight, but you pulled it off. And how were you? First of all, what do you think about her game? I mean, look at her future.
Yeah, I mean, she's really good tennis player. Goes for her shots, takes the ball early, rips. Being a lefty is always tricky, competes really well. I mean, obviously she's beaten a lot of top players this week. I don't really think she needs me to tell her that she's a great player, that we're not going to see enough of her, but we definitely are. And she proved that tonight. I mean, that was...
Djokovic has established himself as someone who speaks honestly about player-affecting issues, and his decision to intervene and contextualize Eala's circumstances sends an unmistakable message to both fans and organizers that she isn't just another emerging talent, but someone who requires serious consideration in how tennis prepares for its evolution. Fan-generated momentum is significant, but professional validation from a 24-time Grand Slam champion creates entirely different dynamics. The journey involves not only winning matches but also managing expectations that extend well beyond competition. And this is something many professionals understand even if their own experiences differed significantly. The emotional and cultural significance attached to Eala's ascent is visible in every capacity crowd and every extended entry line. And it's precisely this significance that transforms her matches into occasions that feel more important than their official round or ranking would suggest. This collective awareness among players also appears in how they discuss tennis's broader evolution, because the sport no longer remains confined to its traditional territories, and emerging markets are reshaping success definitions in real time.
But I also like how tennis, the last couple of decades, you get countries that wouldn't even be mentioned as a tennis country. You can hardly even remember a player from the Philippines, and then you all of a sudden get this talent. I like the story, the connection with Rafa Nadal and his academy. Yeah. She's a lefty. A couple of times when she produced some forehands, I'm like, whew.
Yeah.
I see, it's tough to compare anybody's forehand to Nadal, but she's a great story.
She's a great story. I don't think that she'll probably have quite as many.
The Australian Open, which has consistently marketed itself as the most accessible and internationally inclusive Grand Slam, now faces the complete ramifications of that positioning, as previously untapped fan bases begin appearing in unmanageable numbers. From this perspective, the disruption surrounding Eala isn't an aberration, but rather a preview of what tennis will increasingly need to accommodate as its influence continues expanding. What makes Djokovic's viewpoint particularly convincing is his ability to connect these developments without presenting them as immediate problems requiring solutions. Instead, as this narrative continues developing, it becomes evident that relationships between players like Djokovic and emerging stars like Eala are evolving into something more partnership-based than hierarchical. The traditional distance between established champions and rising talents is being reduced by shared understanding of what tennis needs to flourish. And that understanding is creating supportive moments that feel unusually coordinated for such a competitive environment. Rather than protecting their status or minimizing new competitors, top players are choosing to spotlight and elevate them, actively influencing the next generation's narrative. This evolution introduces additional complexity because it raises questions about how rapidly the remaining tennis infrastructure can adapt to changes that players themselves are already recognizing. Tournament directors, media partners, and governing organizations now confront the challenge of matching this evolution's pace, ensuring that facilities, scheduling systems, and crowd management capabilities can handle the demand that players like Eala are creating. What originated as unexpected crowd congestion has evolved into a comprehensive discussion about tennis's future and the influence new voices will have in directing it. Djokovic's respect for Alex Eala reflects not only her current path, but also recognition of tennis's trajectory, and his willingness to defend her against logistical criticism demonstrates that support is emerging not from external sources, but from the very people who represent tennis at its pinnacle. If this level of endorsement continues, then Alex Eala's story won't simply chronicle a promising career developing under scrutiny, but mark a pivotal moment where tennis fully embraces a broader, more international identity, driven not just by results but by connection, representation, and the unmistakable passion of fans finally seeing themselves represented on court.